Hello everybody, this is Marie from Skeletorama again, and today I am going to give you a peek at a different kit that I did. So in addition to doing junk journals, I also do miniatures, doll scale miniatures, have a dollhouse, all that good stuff. I'm going to place some of the blame firmly on Ara from Bentley House Miniatures for that, because she did this Addams Family dollhouse that is just ridiculously gorgeous. If you haven't seen it, I will definitely put a link to that in the description area, because it's just incredible what she did with this thing. And it's the same dollhouse kit that I have for Something Better. And she put some additions on it, different things like that. But hers is Addams Family. Mine is more of a Victorian haunted house with a mad scientist lab kind of weirdness, because, I can't do anything normal. That would be wrong. But anyways, with a mad scientist lab type Victorian haunted dollhouse, you need a library. And I do have quite a few of the book covers that I've gotten from other places. Alpha Stamps has a lot of really good ones, and of course Etsy. And it's just, I wanted something a little different. They all seem to have either like a theme to them where it's just all one thing. I want a little more broad choice and different types of, I like more of the antique book covers. So that's why I did my own kit. And when I did these, I did them so that they're all the same height and width, so that it fits on here nice and square, so it's much easier for you to cut out. You can cut out with a paper trimmer if you don't want to sit here with little scissors for 12 hours cutting all the stuff out. And it makes it easier when you go to put the guts in the book, because you only have to worry about how tall this is to have it fit in there. You can cut a big long strip and then kind of work from there. So that's why I did that. But when you do these, you will come out with this. Put this up here. In theory, you can see it, probably not, because, me and lighting, just not happening, guys. So anyways, this is what the little books look like. And you can probably actually see it better down here, ironically enough. So this was done using medium weight chipboard. And then I gilded the edges of the pages with some paint to make them shiny and fancy and whatever for my dollhouse. So when I did that, this is what the result of that is. So you see all the different books here. And you'll notice that even though these are all printed the same size, I have some that are different sizes as well. What I do is I'll print out the entire kit in this size, and then another run of the entire kit at, say, 85%, maybe one at 70%, something like that. When you get too close in there, you're starting to get into 1/24th territory. You don't want to do that. But this way I have varying heights, but they're the same book. And the nice thing about these too is, even though they are the same width across, the spines are different sizes. So you'll notice, say, this one here has a much larger spine than this one here. That's also going to introduce some variety, and as far as they stick out, because it'll leave different amounts available for the covers themselves. So it'll introduce variety in there naturally too. And so this one also has these different scrolls. I have another kit that has stuff for scrolls and letters and just kind of ephemera that you would find on, say, the desk in the library or something like that. These right here are, I believe it's Nik the Booksmith little specimen case kits, and they're fantastic. And the nice thing with hers, again, you can print it out any size you want to make it any size you want. So you can have it the size of a matchbook, or you can have it where it would fit in here. So I just figured out what size I need, printed it here, and made these little boxes, and they're just the cutest thing ever. I also did the globe set that she has, which is fun but very painful. So it took, I think it was globe 5 that I was on, after having to pause after globe 3 just to go, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to make this. But I did at globe 5, and it's really cool. So just be warned, her stuff maybe not necessarily easy, but by God, when you get it, it comes out really cool. So anyways, that's what we're doing here. We're doing some books to put in these. There are a bunch of different ways that you can fill your book with pages. You can take copy paper, and you can cut it into strips and then fold the strips, accordion. This is obviously very simplified, but you can accordion them over each other so that you have little book pages so you can open your book. Since mine generally tend to go in bookshelves, I don't worry so much about that. I'll do 1 or 2 like that so that they can maybe sit on a table as if they're open or what have you. You can also use newsprint paper. I'll just flip it over here. This stuff, it's a little bit thinner, and it's kind of like, remember when you were in school, like kindergarten, and they would give you that crappy paper to draw stuff and scribble on. That's this. And you get it in a big, huge pack, and it's really cheap on Amazon. And I use this when I'm doing junk journals to print out documents and ephemera and stuff, because it gives it more of an actual feel of ephemera versus the copy paper itself. So you can use those, or you can use my personal favorite, which is medium weight chipboard. So this is not corrugated. There's no squiggly business in there. You certainly could, but you just wouldn't want to look at that book edge on, because it would look like corrugated cardboard. But this stuff here, I get it in, they're 12 by 12 sheets. I get it in packs of 25, either on Amazon or on Joann's. They have coupons that you can use, and it brings it down to a really good price if they're having a good coupon and not an exorbitant shipping fee. It actually works out. So you can do it that way there. And I'll do multiple layers depending on the thickness of the spine, but this gives me a lot of leeway for that. So you can do that. And again, it's medium weight, lightweight chipboard. You can obviously use lightweight chipboard, but it's lightweight chipboard, so you're going to have to use double, because it's half the thickness of this. I want to say this is a 32nd or 16. One of those. I don't know. That's numbers. There's also another really cool way. There's a lady on YouTube, Heather Tracy. She has Sticketworks Studios, and she does tons of really cool miniatures and SVG files. So if you've got a Brother Scan and Cut or a Cricut, you can cut out these things and make this furniture, and it's awesome stuff. She did a book tutorial once using magazines. The key is it needs to have what's called a perfect binding. So it's where they cut it off straight and use glue. It won't really work with the ones where they're stapled, because it's going to round your spine over too much. This gives you a nice square spine like you would expect to see in a book. So you could just pop the little cover over there. Boom, look at that. We got a book. And that way you can have little pages. So depending on what it is, if it's going to go in here, you shouldn't have to worry about it. It'll look kind of weird if anybody opens it anyway, because seriously, what are you going to read it? But I do a lot of crossword puzzles, and crossword puzzle magazines are almost always done with a perfect binding. And they have lots of pages and stuff. And when you get into this area, it's not going to be legible anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But you'll only use this much of any given magazine, and then you can recycle the rest if you have that option, or whatever you want to do with it. But just know that. But then again, if you do crossword puzzles a lot, you will have plenty of these to work with. So that's another way that you can do it. And in general, with the covers themselves, I print them out on parchment paper, because it's a little bit thicker than copy paper, so you're not going to see through it to whatever substrate you're using for the inside. And I do it on the ivory color. You can do it on cream color. It'll give it more of a kind of an antique color. It will shift the colors a little bit. You can get white parchment paper too, but I prefer the ivory. And I use this stuff here. So this is made by Nina. And if you're a card maker, you know that name. That's what everybody uses when they're doing their Copic coloring. But this stuff here you can get at Walmart, pretty cheap. Any like Office Max, Office Depot, Staples, any of those, or Amazon. This, as you can see, is empty because, well, I've used it because I use it a lot. And I use it in junk journals too. But I got a big, huge ream of it. Ream's 500 sheets. And it was only like 20 bucks maybe, a little less on Amazon. So it's not bad at all for what it is. And you get a ton of mileage out of 500 sheets of it. So that's what I use to print them. You can use cardstock. Problem with cardstock is that it's thick. So you'll end up with, on the edges here where you fold it, you may end up with cracks on your spine, which is not a huge deal. You just grab some Distress ink, because this fixes all the things, and run it along there, and you won't really see the white core of it after that. So it's not too bad. So obviously, in order to make these books, you need to just figure out what you want to do for your pages, and then you need to cut these guys out. So of course, we're going to use scissors, yay! So I use the Tonic Tim Holtz scissors. I love these things. They are fantastic. The trick, though, is when you cut with them, they will leave a serrated edge, but they only leave the serrated edge on one side. And I forget which, it was a card making video, because I do that too. And she was talking about that, and Tim Holtz himself actually told her that about it being on one side. So see where it's got the logo here, it says Tonic and Tim Holtz. That is the side, and I'm going to cut this. This is an exercise in futility, is what I like to call it, because there's no way in hell you can be able to see this, but I pretend you do. This side here has those little serrations where this side doesn't. The problem with having those little serrations is that even though they're very small, once you put it on your book and you go and you ink the edges or whatever you do, you can kind of see them. And so it kind of looks weird. It looks like your book has these weird edge things to it, and books don't have that. So you don't want that. So what you do is you make sure that the flat side here that does not have the logo is facing inside to the edge that you don't want. So logo here, no logo here, serration here, no serration here. And you just kind of go around and cut them that way, and you won't have to worry about that. Okay, so we're going to put some books together. Set these off to the side. I already have one. Can I find it? Oh, of course I can find it. Here it is. So I have one I started cutting some of the books of. And the size of the scissors you use just depends on how comfortable you are. Some people like the large scissors. I prefer those medium scissors. But if I'm doing a long run, I like the longer scissors just because it's easier for me. So please enjoy the gripping excitement that is me cutting things out. It's amazing, isn't it? So I'm not going to cut all these because seriously, unless you are having trouble sleeping, let me know. I'll cut all of them. So again, I'm keeping the edge without the logo towards the inside of the book. So then I flip it around so that it always stays the inside. And I do that when I do any cutting out for miniatures, because that way I can use my favorite scissors and don't have to worry about the serration part of it. Okay, so we've got these cut out here. I'll get rid of the stuff on my desk because I hate having any kind of mess at all on the desk. Okay, so we've got our little things here. So probably the first thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to distress the edges of it. Distressing hides a multitude of sins, right? So you can see here, brings up, because like that's going to help, but whatever. I'm trying. It's got a little bit of white around here. So usually, me being psychotic about everything, I would have to get rid of that. It would bother just the hell out of me like that. Can't deal. This too. Wow, I did a great job cutting these. I'm just such a good cutter. All right, there we are. And I can't have crap on the disc, so get rid of that. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm just going to ink the edges here. So that way you don't have any little white showing. If you maybe didn't do the best job in the world cutting it out, it'll hide it. And then in here on this side, I do these as well because you're only going to see maybe this tiny bit of them once you put your guts in your book. So you don't have to go too crazy with it, but I'll do that so that when you see the book and you see the edges, you see more of that. Yeah, it doesn't look like copy paper or parchment paper or whatever. So there's that. Okay, and now we need to bend these. So in order to do that, I use these. These are fantastic. So these are bending pliers. They are very specific to model making and different things like that, where you need to do a straight edge and a fairly long one. So I'm going to get up. These are needle nose pliers for jewelry making, which can kind of do the same thing, but they taper, which becomes very annoying when you're trying to do a nice long straight edge. It's a pain. And they don't grip nearly as well as these. I do have an extra pair. So this is what they look like when you buy them. These ones, the only place I've been able to find them consistently is Amazon. And they're $15, $20, something like that. And they do ship generally from Japan as opposed to shipping from Amazon. So just know that the shipping does take a little bit on them, but you just can't beat them. So we're going to take our book here, and we are going to put this right here at that edge. And we're going to press down like that. Boom. Nice straight edge. And do the same on the other side. Here. And a straight edge. And then I'll take it and I'll fold, making sure that, see how that's kind of a little cattywampus? I'm going to pull that background so it's a little more straight. I take my bone folder to it. I like the nice crisp edges on stuff. It does make it look a little more realistic than if you just have like this sad little edge. Doesn't look so good. Okay, so there we go. So we have our nice folded book. So we are going to do, the one I'm going to show you is the one that I use, which is the medium weight chipboard method. And then I'll kind of gloss over some of the other ones a little bit, but that's the one that I use the most. So I'm going to get my chipboard out here. And I got my little book cover business there. And the first thing I need to do is see how tall I want to make this. So I'm going to measure the book cover. And it measures about just a little over 1 1/8 inch. Which means I want to cut my chipboard just a little smaller because, of course, your books don't go right up to the very edge of the book. Your books, dear God, your pages, whatever it is, things. All right, so that's what we're going to do. So if it's 1 1/8, I'm going to go about 1 1/16-ish. And I cut mine using a paper trimmer. And I know you're thinking, are you crazy? You're going to destroy the blade of that paper trimmer by using it for cutting medium weight cardboard. Yes, that's true, you will. But here's the thing. I use this a lot for scrapbook paper and regular weight paper when I make journals. So I go through the blades quite a bit. Whenever I have a blade that's too dull for paper, you know, where it doesn't cut it so much as it brutalizes it in a more or less straight line, I take those and I have a little pile of them over here. And that's what I use for cutting the chipboard because they're too dull to cut scrapbook type paper correctly, but they're not too dull for a chipboard. So that is what I use it for. So I'm going to have my chipboard here. And I'm going to line it up. So there's the 1 inch mark. And so we'll go a little tiny bit over. It should be 1 1/16. I swear these things don't cut straight. Or it's probably just me, but I swear these things don't cut straight. But I'm going to push nice and hard on it. It will not cut all the way through because the blade is shorter than the height of the chipboard. So then you just turn it over this way, put it back on here, line it up at the same spot. Usually only have to do it once. Boom, there it goes. Makes it so much easier. Get this stuff out of the way. Okay, so, and you'll probably end up with that line fuzzy because you didn't do it quite exactly right. If you can, you are a superhuman, and I don't know how you do it. All right, so I got my book cover here. I'm going to take this here. I'm going to make sure this lines up. See how it leaves me a little bit at the top and the bottom. So now I'm going to take a pencil eventually. Because, you know, why did I actually have things prepped and ready? That's for crazy people. Okay, so I'm going to go here and I'm looking at it and I'm going to try to do about the same kind of gap that you see at the top and the bottom. There's a better word for it. I just don't know what it is right now. And I'm going to cut it with my scissors. You can also do these with your paper trimmer if you want. I like to live on the edge a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and do it with my scissors. Here, why don't I cut from the line? I have a better shot of being straight. It's not going to be straight. Now with this, of course, yes, I'm going to have a serrated and a non-serrated edge. You can really kind of see it. And see, I've got a light source up here, so I'm holding it up here like it's going to help, but whatever. You can sort of see it down here. I'm going to zoom in and post. Seriously, that's what I'm doing with this. So wish me luck. Here's something I didn't. So now I know I need more than one of these. So I'm going to put this right next to it, line it up at the edge, and I'm going to go ahead and do probably like 3 of them. And I always take the other one off and use the original one I measured against because you're less likely to have some of that drift. You're still going to have drift, but let's do 4. Shouldn't take more than, none of these books should take more than 4 layers of this chipboard because it's just pretty darn thick. Okay, so set this aside. But see how I can set that to the side, and I haven't cut a bunch of stuff the same. So if my next book has a shorter spine, then let's see if I've got one that's got a shorter. Yes, okay. So this one here has, see how that's got a big thick spine. This is a short one. So that means these pages are going to be wider. So if I try to put that in here, see how crappy that looks? Okay, so that's why you want to just do one strip height. That way you can adjust so that you get at the width that you need. We're not doing that book, so how does that look? Okay, so now I'm going to take these, I'm going to stack them up, and I'm going to put them in a little book and see how they look. Okay, so this looks kind of not quite, so I need one more. So apparently I lied, because why not? Every time I say something and I commit to something, then the universe is all, no, we're going to make you look like an idiot. Okay, cool. As long as you're having fun. All right, cut that off. So now we got 5 of these. And I have made the mistake before of going, okay, these are all about the same, width of spine. Let me cut a bunch of it. Yeah, just don't, because it's never going to go your way. All right, so let's put these guys in here. Well, this looks pretty good. You don't want it overstuffed, but you don't want it understuffed either. You want it kind of like a natural. And I think we'll just do funsies. We'll see what happens if we do one more of these. I think one more would be a little bit too much on there as far as the thickness goes. Okay. Stack these guys up. What are we looking here? Yeah, well, that's not too bad. Well, no, it is. You see how these are going straight against here, but this one's kind of pushing over a little bit. It's because it's a little too much, so we'll take that one out. Okay, so we've got 5. This is how many we're going to use for this. So now we're going to glue these together. Now, you can use a lot of different kinds of glues. I usually go between Fabri-Tac, which I love because it is a acetone-based glue. So it has a lot less water. It doesn't have any water as the liquid portion of it. So it's not going to buckle your papers and things like that, like the regular PVA glue does, because its base is water. So this I use for when I'm doing dollhouse stuff. I do the wallpaper with it. I do the shingles with it. Anytime I want to make sure that that paper isn't going to buckle and wrinkle and all that good stuff. But for these, I generally use my other favorite, which is the Scotch Tacky Glue. I love this stuff. This stuff grabs so quick. So I'm just going to take that. I put it in one of these little bottles, which I'm sure just because, I didn't check before I did this, it's going to be, oh no, I'm not actually going to let glue come out because it's a whole video. And I just put a little bit. It doesn't take much. I mean, you're not, building this for durability. You're not going to be moving it around or breathing it or anything like that. But you just need enough to stick them together. You just kind of put them all together as close as I can to square, which since I have very little depth perception in my vision, I see everything kind of 2D. It's never going to be square. It's just not the way it goes. Which is super fun. I do the either 1/24th, 1/48th, or 144th little miniature kits, like the room kits, like something like this. But when I do the room kits, I've done like 25. And I keep hoping every time I do one, please let me get all the walls straight, and I never do. And they cut the stuff. So it's not me cutting the stuff. It's them cutting the stuff, and I'm sure they cut it straight. But can I put it together straight? No, that's not happening. All right, so we have our little stuff in a pile. And like I said, this stuff grabs pretty quick. Otherwise that would fall apart. So just give it a second to grab. What you want to do is you want to get some sandpaper. So this is, God only knows what grit of sandpaper, probably about 150-ish. No, it's probably more like 250. It's fairly rough. But then I'm going to sand the edges of it. And it doesn't really matter if you want to avoid rounding your edges. It's best to go in one direction. It just depends on how lazy I'm being at the time. And that will even up any of the stuff because it will tend to be a little off, but it evens it up. And the cool thing it does is when you do that, it kind of roughs those fibers up and it makes it look a little bit more like book pages versus a bunch of pieces of cardboard stuck together. So that part's kind of cool. It's sawdust stuff everywhere. Okay, so we've got these here. Step number 2 is to put things in the same place twice so you can find them. Distress ink. So I'm going to ink the edges of these because again, you're going to see these. This kind of helps disguise it, gives it more of a page color, I guess, of an old book, that sort of thing. Sometimes it highlights the fact that it's, cardboard put together, but again, if you've got it in a bookshelf, nobody's going to see it. They'll see the top. All right, so we have that there. And then now we're going to put this in our little book. So again, with this, I just use the regular PVA glue. And sometimes, it likes to come out correctly. Sometimes it doesn't. I love these little, it's for quilling, I guess. But man, this thing gets clogged every 30 seconds and it drives me just spare. I have a hat pin type pin that I use just for that. Okay, so we're going to put this guy in here. And then we are going to press down on it like this. You can hear that, and we've got a book. And you may find, as I usually do, that, even though you measured it and all that, you still manage to botch whatever it is you're doing. I'll just kind of come along and I'll trim these edges up a little tiny bit, just so it looks a little more, you know, like a real book where you wouldn't have your cover extending out quite so far. And again, back with the Stress ink to go over those again. And voila, we have a book. Easy peasy. Once I get this part done, then I tend to go over it with Mod Podge. So I use the Mod Podge that has the antique matte most of the time. Otherwise, I'll use regular matte Mod Podge. But you just brush it over this, and it gives it a nice protective coating, gives it more of a sheen, so it looks a little more like, you know, a fancy book. But most importantly, it's protecting your cover, so it's not going to get dirty or terrible or anything. If you want to age these and you're not super confident about your aging, Mod Podge them first, because Mod Podge protects that paper. So let's say you were going to use some sort of paint to age them. It's not going to soak into the paper, and it's much more forgiving. So you could put the paint on and go, oh God, that was horrible. You can wipe it right off. It's super easy that way. Okay, so now taking that same concept, we are going to grab another book, and we are going to not do that because it's super sick and I'm not even going there. Okay, I have this guy here because I'm going to show you the folded paper, and I am not folding that much paper. Seriously, I don't have the kind of time in my day. So again, I'm going to go around the edges of this and on the inside a little bit. There we are. And this is ready for filling, so we're going to grab newsprint paper because it's a little darker. It's a little more book page colored versus the bright white of copy paper. So same sort of thing. I always measure them individually anyway, just in case. Because see, this one's a little bit bigger. So this one is more like 1 3/4, or no, 1 3/8. Jesus. 1 3/8 of an inch here. So I'm going to go about 1 1/8. Good God. Okay, so again, I've got my paper cutter here. And with this, I'm going to pop out the blade that I use for cutting the chipboard, and I'm going to put my actual paper cutting blade in just so I'll cut it a little better. So I'm going to go about 1 1/8 inches on this strip here. Okay, that whole strip. Get this strip out of the way here. I'm going to do the same sort of thing. I'm going to go, where did I put the book? There you are. All right, I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to check that the clearance at the top and the bottom looks natural. And when I'm measuring for how long I want it, I always make the spine be in its relatively natural place, because that will change. You know, when you cut it and you think, oh yeah, no, that's totally cool, and then all of a sudden it's too long, you gotta cut them down again. But so that's about good. And again, I want to be about here. So take my little foldy stuff here and stir this this way. And making sure that it's in line here and it's even on both sides. And then I'm going to take it around this way. I'm just going to accordion fold it. Am I going to do it evenly? I highly doubt it. I would be so shocked if I did. Because that's just, again, it's just something I don't do very well. And we're going to fold those riveting, exciting entertainment for the whole family. And the key is to make sure you're keeping it so that it's straight. That's the one I always have trouble with, and then it looks like it got stepped on by an elephant or something, which is not the look that you want for these. And with this, if you have a really thick spine one and you are, you know, masochistic, I mean committed enough to do the folded pages, then you can always glue multiple stacks of these together to get whatever thickness that you need. So that's always an option. So don't think you need to really measure any of that. So when we're going to put it in our book, see how you got the single here? You want both ends to be a single one. So we're going to go ahead and stop here, because otherwise that would go around. And that's not what we want, because these are going to be the lining pages. I don't remember what they're called, but anyways, it's going to stick down and look like this. And then you got your pages. You don't want to have a bunch of accordion mess here. So what I'll do is I'll go back here, UVA glue again, and I'll just put just a tiny bit. Yeah, sure I will. On each of these, so I can kind of pre-stick these book pages together. And squish it up like that. And so now I'll have this. You see they're all stuck together with a common back. Now let's put it in here and see how it looks for thickness. Please be thick enough, because seriously, I do not want to mess with this. Okay. Yeah, it'll do. It'll do for now, just for these purposes. So then all you do is you're going to take this single page. This single page, you'll probably do a lot nicer version of this. I'm going to do the same kind of thing. We're going to pop it in here. Now make sure your spines align and press everything else down. And then, of course, because it's me doing it, I've jacked up at least one side of it. That's just how I roll. So one of the things with crafting, especially this kind of stuff, that you do have to kind of give up being perfect, because you're probably not going to be in the fun, because you're not supposed to be. But I've watched many crafters, and the best advice they've ever given is it's just paper. It's just paper. So if this doesn't come out perfect, it's just paper. I've got more paper. I can reprint this. I'm not cutting diamonds, which would be just a nightmare. But see, now we have a little book, and it opens like this. You can, if you're good with Photoshop and things like that, you can always take book pages of text and you can shrink them down, and you can make them into these long ribbons and just fold them at the creases. I was going to do a set of books that way, but it was a big pain, so I didn't feel like doing it. But there we go. We have that. So that way, if you want to have it open, you can even glue it open to a certain page kind of deal. Make sure your spine's glued down real good, and then kind of bully the pages over this way so it's an open book and what have you. But again, I tend to do these ones here and just have the gilding. For the gilding, I use my paints. I'm a huge fan of Glitter and Art Alchemy by Prima. It's the company that puts them out under her kind of name. They're not cheap, but my God, they're the best paint ever. I love this stuff. And so this will give you this nice shiny metallic edge to it that looks like the gilding. You can also, if you like, take these and turn them into jewelry or charms or what have you. I do lots and lots of different crafts because my attention span is that of a gnat on crack. So sometimes I feel like doing junk journals. Sometimes I want to sew. Sometimes I want to make jewelry. You can make these into jewelry by using wood scraps. So you can go to a craft store. They'll have, this is called strip wood, and it's the big long strips. Like I say, this would be a piece of strip wood, right? And so if you go about an inch wide, you can do this. And then for thickness, I would say maybe like an eighth, no more than a quarter of an inch. And you can cut the piece of wood down, and then you can just, put your little book thing over that and glue it and Mod Podge the heck out of it and put a little eye pin in there, and you can hang it from a necklace or a charm bracelet or a charm on a tassel on a junk journal. You can do lots of different stuff with it. So it's just kind of what you want to do with your end product. And then, of course, with the magazine idea, again, you would take this and you go, okay, I'm going to go, and I would definitely recommend you marking this down. So I would mark a line down here, and then I would take my craft knife, and then I would cut. You're not obviously going to cut through the whole thing in one shot. If you do, you have a really good craft knife, please let me know what it is down in the comments because I want it. But you'll just keep cutting and cutting, and it'll be straight-ish, and then you can cut these to any height that you need. But again, with this, you are going to be limited by the width. So if you cut it for this book width, for example, but you also want to do one with a shorter book spine width, you'll need a longer one. So if you're going to do that, cut it to the width of your widest cover that you have once you've folded them. So that way, if anything, you just cut it down. But it's the same principle. You would cut it down, measure off how much of it you need here, and use your craft knife again and cut it there, and then just smack it right in there, and then it's got pages and stuff. So anyways, that's what you can do with this kit. I do have 3 of them available. Same kind of thing. Each one has 3 sheets, and there's 3 times 7, 21, so 63 per kit. And they're all like antique books. Some of them I only had the cover. So I had to kind of create it If you see the cover on the front and the back, I had to rebuild it, but I tried to get a lot of different cool stuff, and I like different colors and textures and things. Ignore the printing on this, because so this is what happens when you do that whole false advertising. I want to save toner. I want to save ink. Yeah, it's going to look like crap, and you're going to print it again because it looked like crap. So you saved nothing. So don't fall for that. It never works out right, especially for this kind of stuff. If you're printing like your taxes, yeah, go for it. But all right, so that is that. Again, this is available in my Etsy shop. I will put a link to my Etsy shop in the description box below, and all three of the kits individually. And hopefully you will go make some of your own books. Thanks for joining me. Bye.